Hi, my name is Brian Grunn. I'm a principal sales engineer at Oracle, and today I'm going to walk through the copy to tape functionality. This is the first part in a three-part series, and in the first part I'm going to walk through how the copy to tape functionality relates to the ZDLRA and some functionality that you want to set up within the policies of your database when you get ready to perform a copy to tape process. In the second part, I'm going to walk through the copying itself and what you need to think about for that. And in the third part, I'm going to take a look at some pieces of backup that have been sent to tape so that you can see what they would look like from a catalog standpoint.
The first piece that you want to look at with the copy to tape process is the data protection policy that you have set up for the databases that you're looking at copying to tape. You've probably looked at this before, and the first thing that you normally look at is the disk recovery goal window, which is how long you want your backup to stay on disk, typically about 30 days or so. But when you're doing the copy to tape process, you also want to look at the Media Manager Recovery Window policy. This sets the amount of time that you want the backup to remain on tape, whether it's physical tape or VTL. This window is typically longer than your disk recovery window goal. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Media Manager Recovery Window policy is that this will tell the Media Manager to remove the backups at that point in time. If you set this for 90 days, it's going to tell the Media Manager to remove the backups, when it hits the day 90 period. But if you also have within your Media Manager a recovery window, some sort of retention set at that point, then these two are going to fight each other out for whichever one is the shorter one. If you have this set for 90 days, but on your Media Manager you tell it to remove your backup on day 45, then on day 45 you're going to have expired backups that is going to override this Media Manager window. Same thing's going to happen if you set this to a shorter period of time. It's going to tell the Media Manager to remove the backup before the Media Manager thinks that it's going to expire it on its side. The Media Manager Recovery Window policy, you need to think this through and decide where you want it to be managed, whether it's going to be at the policy on the ZDLRA or through the Media Manager itself. And if you're going to be keeping some backups longer than others, say a 7-year backup, and then have the normal backups get removed after 90 days, then it's going to be even more critical that you keep that in mind, and you're most likely going to want the Media Manager to control it rather than the protection policy. If you leave this blank, then the Media Manager is going to be controlling it rather than the retention policy. The other item to look at in this screen is the backup copy policy. So what this does is it ensures that new backups are either replicated or copied to tape. So we're looking at the copy to tape process before being removed from the ZDLRA. What this means is if for some reason your copy to tape process is down, your tape library isn't available, and you've got a short disk retention window, and it's getting ready to expire some of the backups on disks that have not made it to tape yet, what do you want it to do? The default is to always accept new backups, even if it requires purging existing backups. If it gets to a space crunch, it's going to accept new backups and get rid of backups that haven't been copied to tape. The other item you can set it to is to refuse new backups. This is going to do is if they haven't been copied to tape and they're still on disk and you're running out of space, it will stop accepting new backups, but it will ensure that all the backups that you've taken that are on disk will make their way to tape. The next screen I'm going to look at is the Media Manager screen in OEM. There's two items that we're looking at on this point. On the left-hand side is the Media Manager library, and within the Media Manager library are attribute sets. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the current Media Manager. So this ZDLRA that I'm looking at has a physical tape drive attached. The items that you look at is got a name, the maximum number of drives. If it's a physical tape array, this is the number of drives that you have attached to the ZDLRA that you want to use for backups. If it's a VTL, it's the maximum number of streams that you want to send over. The main item that you set is the SBT library. What this is in this case, it's the library for OSB, because this is using OSB on the ZDLRA to copy to physical tape. If you were using another VTL or another media manager, like Net Backup, then this would be the Net Backup library. And keep in mind that the ZDLRA is a rack cluster. A base rack has 2 nodes. This library needs to exist on both nodes. If you're using a library that connects to a media manager other than OSB that you're going to be installing, you need to remember to install that media manager on both nodes in the cluster, or if it's a multi-rack system, then all the nodes in the cluster, because any one of those nodes could be sending the backups to the VTL. That's something that you need to keep in mind. The other thing that you need to keep in mind with this is that this is a rack system, and it is going to send the backups from both nodes, and it's going to restore the backups from both nodes of a base rack. When you're setting up the security within the media manager, you need to keep in mind that either of the nodes in a base rack can be doing the restore. Both nodes need to have the security or permission set to see the backups that are getting sent over from either node. Both nodes need to be able to see the backups that were sent from either of the nodes. And the first time that you're going to see an issue with this is every night it does a cross-check all, and it's going to connect to the external media manager. And if it connects to the external media manager, it's going to happen from one of the nodes, either the first node or the second node, and it can't see the backups that were sent from the other node. Then you're going to see expired backups that were sent to the media manager, and only in the base rack, only half the backups are going to be expired, because half the backups can be seen from the node that sent them, the other half can't. So that is something to keep in mind when configuring your media manager to the other side, is the security, and that this is a rack cluster that is sending over the backups. That is the first piece, is to set up the media manager itself, which is the library, which in this case is OSB, but it could be something like Net Backup. Then within that, we have attribute sets. You could have multiple backups that you're sending to that device or that media manager that have different characteristics. In the case of a physical tape library, it's the number of streams. That's the difference that we're doing here. There could be times where you're just sending over an incremental and you want to use a smaller number of streams, or you're sending over a full backup and you want to use a larger number of streams. The other thing that gets set here is the media manager vendor parameters. This becomes more important when you're writing to something like a Net Backup. What you'd set here for a external media manager is the parameters that it needs, the library you set up in the media manager library needs to connect. They would be items like the name of the media manager server that you're connecting to, possibly the port or credentials that get sent over if necessary, and the policy on that side. Any parameters that need to be sent over to a external media manager, you would set here in the media manager vendor parameters. You were making the connection between the ZDLRA and physical tape or an external manager. This is where the information on that connection is made, is within the media managers and then attribute sets within the media manager. And with the attribute sets, when you're setting up something like Net Backup and you're backing up multiple databases using the same media manager library, you would definitely set up multiple attribute sets for each policy, because you could be sending over full backups that get kept for a longer period of time, or some databases get kept for a different retention period that is policy based on the media manager. each attribute set would have a different set of parameters that get sent over to the media manager, and that's how you would separate out the databases or the policies on the media manager, is through attribute sets that are set up within the media manager library. Now, to finish out part one, where I'm talking about the connection of the ZDLRA to the copy to tape process, this is the last piece of it that ties it together, is the template. In the next part two, I'm going to go through the template and what the different pieces mean as you send fulls and incrementals. But you can see at the beginning of this, the two pieces that are tying the media manager library to the running of the copy to tape job itself is when you create one of these templates, you do set up the media manager library that you're sending it to and the attribute set. And then within that, you're sending either a policy or a specific database. But I'm going to go into that in more detail in part two. Thank you for listening.